There are two more P&F amendments that do affect HHN. If you wanted to get my opinion or take any comment, or I can give comment.
Yeah, let's take it. Should be
P&F
14 and
And this is something you may recall from the last budget where we did 2 budgets ago, where we had an audit on sort of our processes of working over with our purchase service agents. And so I would support PNF 14. This is something that calls for a rebidding of our RFPs, request for proposals for housing and homeless support. The fact that it hasn't been out there for a while is probably means just in need for a revision and to go through the RFP process again.
Supervisor, this is your proposal. So
I think that is the thing that first drew attention to this, is trying to look at contracts as the audit had requested us to, and make sure that we're bidding things for which there's more than one vendor out there, and not just waiving that requirement of Chapter 25 of the Code of Ordinances, so that we have that. But secondly, the environment around this is changing, and HUD is pushing us to have a different sort of delivery of services, a one-stop shop, and this enables us to both bid a contract for which there are more than one vendor to offer this service, and it doesn't take this contract away from anybody. I think there's a good chance that the current vendor could get it, but it also allows us to change and tinker with the scope of services when we rebid that, so that we make sure that we're making sure that our clients are getting services under a best practices model, and that's what we hope to do.
any questions from the committee members on this one? Supervisor Hendrick.
Just one question. I think the Human Service Department has over 100 purchase of service contracts, and I know that that this committee has been very concerned about sole source contracts and waiver of bids. So certainly that's a direction that we always want to look. But how was this particular contract chosen?
I chose this because, well, first of all, you're right that there are many contracts, but many of them are bid. There are just a few that are not bid each year that we have to do a waiver for. And as you know from sitting in this committee, it's something we really grill Lynn on when she comes forward, or other directors with the sole source contract. So there are just a few that don't get bid. This one has never been bid in the past. And the changes with the changing environment of trying to do best practices with one-stop shop also brought this to the top of the stack.
Thank you.
So about an hour and a half before this meeting started, I found out that the Tenant Resource Center was targeted to have our funds go out to RFP. I don't know why. I fully do not understand this proposal. I read the words on a piece of paper, though I am extremely confused and concerned about why this is happening. We've met with staff. They've mentioned no concerns about any of our services. In fact, we usually exceed most of our goals that are written for our contracts. They made no suggestions for any changes to our contract. And I think some of you know this, because I've been here before telling you this, but in 1998, when we got funded originally for the Tenant Resource Center, we got $98,000 for our operating expenses. Now we get $90,000 for our operating expenses and $5,000 that goes directly to clients. So we've had a $5,000 cut during that time period, but we've also then had to pay for our copier. We now rent a space at the job center. We have to pay for our phone. We have to pay for the internet, and now in this year's or next year's contract, we've been told that we have to pay for the mail that goes out from there. So those are all expenses that have been added to our contract to the tune probably about $12,000. So really, we're not getting anywhere near the $98,000 or the $90,000. We're really spending money to run this program. We've asked for a review in the past. We've never gotten one. And I am kind of surprised because our whole section hasn't ever gone out to RFP, and I've asked about it repeatedly, and everyone just started ducks and covers and says, don't ask those questions because then we'll have to do this. But I'm wondering why Tenant Resource Center was singled out of housing and homeless services when there's 11 other programs that are $1.5 million that are in that same category, and they're all sole source and they're not going out for RFP. I actually would welcome it. I think that there's a lot of room for review of what we are doing when it comes to spending money for housing and homeless services. I just don't think the Tenant Resource Center should be singled out without all the other agencies having to do it as well. A little bit about what we do. It says that other people can provide our services. I highly doubt that. We have mediators that go to small claims court, and they're all volunteers. We coordinate those volunteers, and they do 300 mediations a year at small claims court when people are being evicted. And we have over an 80% success rate with people being able to stay in their homes because of the teeny tiny little piece of money that we get from the county for doing that mediation. And I don't think any other agency, number one, has the capacity to take that on, number two, has the expertise to take that on, and number three, for the amount of money they get paid when you want to do it, it's too much of a hassle. The other thing that we do is we do the housing counseling, and there's been three recent law changes. We're the ones who train all the agencies out there about those law changes, and to think that some other agency is suddenly going to come in, be the expert on those law changes and understand how to do them is kind of ludicrous, because we are the sole providers of that in our community, and in fact, we are the sole providers for that in the state. The other thing is we do provide services in Spanish and Hmong. All of my staff speak a second language besides me if they're funded by the city or the county. And we serve over 13,000 clients with this money. I don't think any other agency has the capacity to do that, again, because we use an extensive amount of volunteers to provide those services. We have that network that's been built up, and we have fundraising that we put into it. We don't get enough money from the county for everything that we do. The other thing that we do, and it's not in our contract, is we provide the weekly housing list for all of the agencies in the county so that people can have a very easy list to use that lists 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms by price. And people can go through that instead of having to do a housing search. They can go through that list and use that information. We also track all of the affordable housing programs in the county, and we provide a lot of other information like that the hospitals and social workers throughout the city and county all provide. And we do this all for much less than $90,000. I think that the value of our services is something that if you were to go to another agency, you won't get that level of services because of our use of volunteers, because unfortunately our staff aren't paid as well as probably they should be, and because we have a strong dedication to doing this work. So I guess I would like to see if you're going to have us go out to RFP, that you RFP the whole section, the whole housing and homelessness services group, because that's what would be fair. And I think that audit pointed out a lot of things about our funding process that is not fair. Should have included finding out an hour and a half before the meeting that you're going to potentially be cut without any opportunity to tell my board, without any opportunity to tell our volunteers or our staff what was going on. Just sort of had to show up here, and I guess I'm at your mercy because this is the last opportunity to speak to the board before you vote. I do feel like it's retaliation for some of the things that I've said on my blog, or that I have had open records requests or other things. I've been targeted and had the sheriff's department call me over something that was absolutely ridiculous, and they agreed to it, and are now pursuing that. And I feel like this is just further intimidation and retaliation against me for speaking out for a lot of people who have no voice, and for saying things that make people uncomfortable. And I hope that you will reconsider that. I would hate to think that our county has sunk that low to do that kind of a thing. Before I leave though, I want to say one other thing. Please restore CAC. Their programs are relied on by all the other programs, just like TRC is relied on by a lot of other programs. They need that money. Bethel absolutely needs that money. Thank you for putting that that in there, that was my number one request, that if we're gonna get more money for homeless services, that's where it should go. Connor does a great job, and he can't continue to do that by himself. And please support the Affordable Housing Fund, because that's something that's been long neglected by our community, and it is a huge, huge need. We have a less than 2% vacancy rate. We talk to people all day long who cannot find housing, and that's what we do. We do some really, really difficult work. We're underfunded. And if you make us go through an RFP process, there's going to be a gap in those services. In July and February, there won't be those services available to the community. We're going through an RFP process and, quite frankly, probably wasting a lot of people's time. So I would urge you not to cut or not to pass PNF number 14.
Thank you, Brenda. Are there questions from folks on the committee? Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.